benefits, out-of-district costs, transportation. There's just a lot of things. So trying to get these things in balance is certainly going to be a challenge. We're going to do the very best we can. We'll be working with all of our administrative team members to try to determine how we can best address both our needs, and the loss of the revenue, and be able to present to the board a tentative budget for them to approve. I do want to say even to the board, it may take us even longer than a couple weeks. We will have a tentative budget. It'll be a balanced budget, but it still may need some tweaking. We are permitted the time period between the time the board approves a tentative budget, which will be within the next couple weeks, and the public hearing. Public hearing is when we have an opportunity to make the final adjustments. We may just need a little bit more time to kind of fine tune some things, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks we can kind of handle a majority of the adjustments that need to be made in order to get our budget in balance. So that is where we are. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
I'm just going to add a couple of pieces of information about the funding formula.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about legislative advocacy. So I wanted to, each individual school district receives their state aid summary, and it includes the calculations for their local fair share. So those numbers, when you look on like nj.com or the DOE website, you don't see the calculations that were used for each municipality. Last year, OPA requested those numbers for the entire state, and I did so again this year. I just have not received that information so that I can do a comparison into what other districts' equalization valuation and district income factors were in the calculation for local fair share, because I want to understand what it looks like for us and if it's comparable to other communities throughout the state. So from a local fair share perspective, the way that our budget works is we have our adequacy budget. It's based on our enrollment. We talk a lot about S2, which is based on our enrollment as well. From my perspective, however, it almost appears, and I can't think of a better analogy, I kind of racked my brain a few minutes ago to come up with one, as if somebody is putting their finger on the scale. Because when our local fair share increases, when they say our municipal tax burden should be this number, the state aid decreases because it's subtracted from our adequacy budget. So this is the cost the state says that you need your adequacy budget to educate students, provide a thorough and fair education. Efficient? Thorough and efficient? Sure. Thanks. I was like, there was definitely the wrong adjective there. That's our adequacy budget. Then they subtract your local fair share, what your municipal taxes should raise, your property taxes. And then the remaining amount is your equalization aid that's given to you from the state. So that number is what we're looking at when we talk about our state aid numbers, because there's all these special categories that we receive other buckets from. However, the state, when we're looking at how they're doing the math on that local fair share formula, is what is concerning to us and what we will continue to advocate for, because that is where we see kind of the flaw in the formula. So to give you an example, and I tried to crunch the numbers, Pitman has 3,206 properties on our SR3A from the county. So of those 3,206 properties, the state on our funding formula has said in 1 year, from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25, we saw an increased value on those properties of $105 million, which is a substantial amount of money for our property values to have been raised. So I don't know if you've all refied your homes to cash in on that, but it is there. From fiscal year 23 to 24, equalization valuation increased 16.66%, which was $112 million. So again, that's the prior year. So our equalization value from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25 has increased by over 40%. So they have decided that the valuation in Pitman and our real estate holdings have increased in value by 40%. Additionally, and I'm not sure if you have seen this reflected in your paychecks, the district income, the wealth of our district from fiscal year 24 to 25 increased 11.4%, or $37 million. So the residents in our community saw that increase in their district income. Those two numbers are then multiplied by a multiplier that changes every single year, and that number calculates what they believe our municipal tax burden should be, so that they can then allocate what their portion of equalization aid that we're owed to. So the funding formula, when they've run that number, so this year, for example, we saw an 11% increase, or $1,499,080 difference, that they increased our municipal tax burden. So they have now said, this is the increased amount of taxes that we believe your community has both the wealth and the real estate holdings to be receiving from your residents. From fiscal year 22 to 25, we saw a 29% increase, which is 3.347049. So I apologize. So over $3 million. And if we make that a cumulative loss and we add those 4 years together in the number that was lost between each year, we arrive at over $5 million. That the state has increased our municipal tax burden, which in turn allows them to decrease the amount of equalization aid that we are owed. From an equalization aid perspective, we have seen a total loss of over $7 million. Because over those corresponding years, the equalization aid that we are entitled to has decreased because our municipal tax has taken a bigger portion of that. So if that's a scale and this is adequacy, as our municipal tax base goes up, their portion of aid that we are owed goes down. So that, from my perspective as a taxpayer and resident, is what is most alarming to me, because as concerning as S2 was and our declining enrollment, and we've looked at these other districts in the state that have faced that as well, ultimately this appears to be a large, if not most significant driving factor in the funding formula in terms of what has changed our aid that we're in receipt from the state. As a board, it's obviously something that we've identified as an area of concern. I mentioned, I believe, last meeting that I'm not sure if we've had a meeting since then, that I had spoken to Senator Brizzacelli regarding our concern. We were waiting for our state aid numbers to come out. This afternoon, we sent emails on behalf of the board to the Senate Education Committee, the Assembly Education Committee. We reached out to our NJSBA Government Relations Rep, Jonathan Pushman, as well as Dr. Purnell. We also included the legislative aid for the Assembly. And then I registered to attend the public hearing and potentially provide testimony at both the Assembly and the Senate. I'd welcome anyone who'd like to join me. We can certainly carpool. But I think that this is the concern when you're looking at it from a big picture perspective as to what absolutely needs to change in the funding formula, and is really shorting districts, particularly suburban districts like ours. So it's really just an unfair equation. And this isn't what the School Funding Reform Act was intended to do. It's just that they can't meet the budgetary obligations of the system they've created, and so they're changing the rules. So that's kind of my position as a board member. I know we talk a lot about it, and I would welcome any board members that want to join me. And if you have any thoughts, please shoot me an email, and same goes for members of the public, because it's a concern. And I hope that we see some movement, much like we did last year after the budget release, that will go in our direction.
When is the hearing, April?
The 11th of March and the 19th.
Okay.
So the Assembly's the 11th and the 19th for the Senate. Anyone else? All right. That is going to bring us, we have no meeting minutes. I apologize. Let me just pop back to the agenda. We have no data ad hoc. Finance and facilities, Mr. Grossman, if you'd like to touch briefly upon.
Yeah, just to say that the Finance and Facilities Committee met April. Ms. Miller, myself, and Sarah Bolton met at Sarah's house Friday evening, about 2 hours, just to discuss the referendum projects and try to get that into a budget of what we can go out for versus the cost of doing every project. We have to cut projects down to get within budget of what we can afford on a referendum. So we did some preliminary discussions on that, and then, of course, our executive session tonight was more clarity with our engineers, architects.
Great. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction, Mrs. Farrell, can I turn it over? Oh, do you want me to take it?
Sure.
Okay. Or do you have it? Do you want to take it?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to move items 1 through 5 as written. Any discussion? Oh, may I have a second? Thank you. Sorry.
Second, Farrell?
I'm not used to doing this job.
That's okay.
All right. Any discussion?
I'll just comment. First of all, I'd like to comment on number 5, the opportunity to appoint Mr. Rob Miles as our new business administrator. replacing Ms. Rose. We'll certainly hate to see her leave, but we're very fortunate to find someone who has experience. There's a very limited pool of individuals who are applying for these positions. Rob is currently serving as a school business administrator, looking to get a little bit closer to home and looking for the opportunity to work in the Pitman community. The other person there at number 4 is another important, and this is one of our long-term replacements, but these individuals play a very, very important role in maintaining the high qualities that we're looking for. And I think this is another one, and I've probably said this for the last couple of meetings, that we've been very, very fortunate, especially with our permanent replacements, but even with some of our temporaries. And this is a young lady who is currently finishing up a replacement position in another district. She has just completed her coursework a few months ago to be a school counselor, very young, very dynamic. She will be replacing Dr. Davison, who will be out on a temporary leave. So again, just very fortunate to get a high-quality individual, even though it's going to be for a very short period of time. And then Kaylee there is being recommended as one of our paraprofessionals. Again, someone who is very knowledgeable of our district, looking to get into this world of preschool education, and also going to be an asset. Of course, going to certainly hate to see Mark leave us. We always wish our employees here that are moving on the best, and we certainly wish Mark the best. And Mark's only been here a very short time, a little over a year, but has done a great job for us, and is going to be sorely missed. So we'll be working hard to fill that position as quickly as we can. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Rose, please call the vote.
Higby Iona,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Farrell, Papalardo,
Yes.
Pope,
Yes.
Grossman,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, that's going to bring us to our second public comment. If you'd like to be recognized to speak, please step to the podium to my left, state your name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable.
Hi, Greg Patterson, Pitman. You want my address too?
You got
Okay, just trying to get the numbers straight for the budget issues. We lost 1.5-ish last year and got $900,000 back from the state after they kind of reconfigured a little bit, but that was just a 1-year grant
Right.
back to us.
1 year legislative action.
Yes, so we're potentially losing from our budget $1.6 million this year from what we had last year.
You're putting those two things kind of together.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like $900,000 plus another $700,000.
Just to say roughly, it's probably a little bit less. Of that $900,000, we probably spent maybe, let's say, $500 and so on one-time personnel cost. And when you use personnel, we'd like to see personnel in the regular budget, not into one time. So yes, we need to replace that money. So kind of, in theory, yes, I think you can kind of put it right around that number.
I mean, the hope is we can get some of these $700,000 back through another legislative action. Best case scenario, we could get some of that money back, but the $900,000 is probably no chance at this point.
No, that's absolutely right. It was one-time funding only. There's no chance. And I would even go as far as saying, even if we got partial or all the 7, it's a really, really nice Band-Aid. But that's all it is a Band-Aid. And we really need to work, and we are going to do the very best we can to kind of fix the best we can the issue, so that moving forward out of S2, when we move forward, we're starting at a level playing field. We're not putting and starting the year already another $500,000 in the hole because we didn't fix the problem. It's not going to be easy. I would say that your 1.5, it's probably even maybe a couple $100,000 more than that is the number that we're probably looking at as having to make a reduction in order to get a balanced budget. Last year, as we all know, we had the option of, and unfortunately had to close the 2 schools. Don't have that option this year, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But we're going to do the very best we can to kind of get us to a point where we can then start to build back up, as hopefully in the future years we start to be on the positive side of receiving state aid.
Are we able to talk yet about what kinds of cuts we might be making, or is that
Just
still-
got the numbers on Thursday, and as I said, you got to digest it a little bit. So we're in the very, very, very early stages, but it's only going to be a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seeing no one, did we make a decision decision, we are not meeting next week, correct? We just our regular scheduled meeting. Okay. All right. Anybody have any old or new business? Seeing none, may I have a motion to close? So moved to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second, Bolton.
All in favor? The next Pitman Board of Education meeting will be on Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 in the Pitman Junior Senior High Media Center. Thank you.